I am Jeremy Bement, one of your two hosts for this panel. I host a podcast called Doctor Who Panel to Panel. It is a podcast that is kind of focuses on a specific niche of Doctor Who, that being Doctor Who comic strips and art, in which animation kind of falls into that category, which is why I'm kind of on this panel. And Kathy, if you want to introduce yourself.
I've got a cough too. I'm Kathryn Sullivan. I write middle grade fantasy and science fiction. I also do reviews such as Children of Time, The Companions to Doctor Who, where I've got 2 essays, and the recently released Outside In Regenerates, where I did reviews of the Crotons.
Hey, that's a good book because I have a review in there too.
Excellent, good.
I reviewed the Moon Base in there. I did a comic strip.
Excellent. Oh, good. And I will
So,
have copies of this in the Artist Alley.
ooh, awesome. Good to hear.
Yeah.
Got to promote that ATB publishing. Got to help
Yes,
out small press.
definitely.
So, yeah, we're going to just kind of general chit chat about the Doctor Who animated episodes. Not the ones that featured David Tennant that came out a while back, but we're kind of gearing this more towards missing episodes because if you're a Doctor Who fan, of course, you know that Doctor Who has a lot of missing episodes. I believe right now the tally is 97 missing episodes, but over the years, there's been quite a few of them that the BBC has done animated versions of. They started out back in, I believe it was 2011, hiring Cosgrove Hall to animate episodes 1 and 4 of The Invasion. So that way they could include them in on the release of The Invasion. Fans would have one complete story.
And before that, they actually released incomplete episodes,
Yep,
Lost in
they
Time,
did.
where they basically said, well, here's one of Crusade, here's one of this, and it's like one of the space pirates. Like, this is the only way you can get it. And then they did the animation.
Yeah, and the BBC kind of have a little bit of a history with animation in way of them doing an animated version of Shada that was released on the BBC website back in the day, and also, like I said, the David Tennant specials that they did that were animated. And apparently, there was enough fan interest in those that the BBC figured people are interested in Doctor Who animated episodes, so why don't we try to animate the missing episodes as a way of completing stories and getting them out there to the fans.
Mhm.
So I know I was really excited when they announced the creation of the 2 Invasion episodes. Kathy, what did you think about them?
Uh, it was nice to actually see them because I was part of the network of the Telesnap reconstructions way back in the day. Oof.
Oh,
And
yep.
but actually see them moving, it added a lot more to the story. I thought the invasion ones were rather well done for that time period.
They were.
Was
Cosgrove Hall, is a really well known animation studio, and the BBC, from what I had read, the BBC had a lot of extra money from the BBC website, some stuff that they didn't create, material they didn't create for the website. That they're like, let's take that money and funnel it to Cosgrove Hall to make these 2 animated episodes.
Mhm.
And I remember the animation being really good and they really well done.
Mhm.
Um, and they didn't quite look, realistic, but as far as an animation goes, they were. It seemed like they did more frames per second than kind of some of the more recent animations that we've gotten. So there was a bit more of a flow to them to make them look more natural and not quite so a jerky style that an animation what you're used to.
Yeah.
But that was popular enough that then they kind of continued on. Um, the next one they did, as far as an incomplete story, they animated episodes 4 and 5 of the Reign of Terror, and
Yeah, with me.
and that one they hired Planet 55 Studios to do. I have a feeling that it was Planet 55 Studios kind of had a smaller budget to work with and could still do the animation. And they did quite a few different stories for the BBC. They animated the Reign of Terror 4 and 5, like I said. They also did the final episode of the 10th Planet, so that
Mhm.
we could have a complete 10th Planet story. And they also did episodes 1 and 4 of the Moon Base to go to fill the gaps there to have yet another complete Patrick Troughton story.
The nice little fact about the Reign of Terror is that because there wasn't a lot of detail, they basically went to, I think it was the University of Paris, who basically sent them photographs of what the architecture of the time period would have been, which
Oh,
added
okay.
a lot of background detail, made it a little bit richer instead of just the characters moving against a fuzzy background.
Hmm. Yeah, I thought it was a really, I was really happy that the BBC were doing this, that they were coming up with these episodes to kind of fill the gaps in and get these complete stories out one way or another. Because I think all big Doctor Who fans know there's several different people that recorded off-air recordings of the audios of these episodes when they were originally aired on the BBC. Like Graham Strong, for example, had these really crisp, clear audio recordings, so that gave them what they needed to have the soundtrack, and then they just had to create the animation to go with it. So we're very fortunate in that somebody had kind of the forethought to want to relive Doctor Who episodes that they couldn't see on TV once they had aired originally, and that they recorded the audio just so they could listen to them over and over again as a kid and never got rid of them. Otherwise, it's highly doubtful we would have had any of these animations. They probably
Yeah.
would have said, well, sorry, that's the way it goes.
I mean, we basically might have had still had the telesnaps, but nobody would have actually saved them and gone back if they
Hmm.
didn't have the audio to connect with it. And that was basically part of a lot of the actors wanted to have something of their resume because, of course, they didn't save videotapes back in the day. So they hired it's going to be on the panel about the telesnaps. So those of
Okay.
you who are at the convention will get more details from those people on that panel. But because they had the still pictures, they were taken off the TV screen at the time due to, oh, I got the man's name. Um,
John Kira?
thank you. Uh, because he'd been taking those pictures, we had at least enough to have an idea of what was happening, and that actually helped with the animation too.
Yeah, definitely. Having those pictures to give the storyboard artists and the directors of the animation episodes something to go from. Uh, it feels to me like back when they were doing these individual episodes to fill these stories, they were trying to stick as closely as they could to the original episodes and make them fit in with the actual surviving episodes and make them feel like a complete story. We can kind of allude to that as we go further on and kind of the history of the animations, because we've kind of the studios have kind of gotten away from that just a hair here and there. Um,
Very
but
nice. So and so, yes. I've added Easter eggs. I just love spotting.
uh-huh. Um, so along with these, the Ice Warriors 2 and 3 were also animated to complete the story of the Ice Warriors. Yep, perfect. And then I my listing after that, I don't have the exact order of their release, but that's after we got to the Ice Warriors. That's where they've kind of filled in all the gap episodes
Mhm.
and completed the stories that we actually had surviving episodes of. And then they had been popular enough, and fans had given the BBC enough positive feedback and saying, we're buying these, we want more, that they decided to kind of try their hand at doing stories that were missing completely in way of all we had was the audio recordings. Um, so there was numerous ones that they've done of those. And Kathy, how did you feel about them animating complete stories? Did you feel like you were a big enough of a Doctor Who fan that you would be interested in watching a, a complete animated story?
Well, I've been watching the telesnaps reconstructions of like actually having moving characters instead of still pictures was a wonderful concept. I mean,
It,
just basically seeing them.
uh, for me, I was a little apprehensive because although I definitely would love to see uh, moving pictures, like I had watched the telesnap reconstructions, and they're kind of tedious because all you have is just a still picture on a screen replaced by another still picture on a screen as things went along. It was I thought, oh, this is going to be great to see, animated figures moving on the screen. But then I started thinking, it's like, well, a lot of these Doctor Who stories there's not a lot that really goes on other than people walking from one side of the stage to the other side of the stage, or meeting in the middle and chit chatting. And the action scenes are kind of few and far between. So how interesting is it going to? It's not like watching like a Saturday morning cartoon, or an animated superhero cartoon where there's you might have a couple quiet moments here and there, but there's always fighting and car chases, and even cartoony type animation where you have Tom chasing Jerry for 5 minutes.
Mhm.
How I was wondering how excited fans are going to find a Doctor Who story where it's just 2 or 3 characters standing on a screen with their mouths moving and not really doing anything other than maybe moving an arm up and down would be.
But they didn't do that. They basically focused a lot on the expressions, and Troughton has such an expressive face.
Mm-hmm.
Although some of these artists got, okay, we're talking about artwork. Every time they decide to have really dark eye bags underneath Troughton's eyes, it's like, oh my gosh, are they trying to emphasize how tired the poor man is? Because there's several ones. Let's see. I keep marking Power of the Daleks at eye bags, Invasion at eye bags. Like, what are they doing to the poor man? But a lot of the other things that you didn't expect to see, and I'm going to start jumping around and saying the ones that
Sure, go right ahead.
really Macra Terror, the fact
Okay.
that we can actually see the giant crabs,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that Polly was in a different outfit altogether, it was just mind-boggling because I mean you can't tell from the still pictures what the Macra actually looked like except for the glowing eyes. And actually have the animators put in these giant crabs and made so much more of the story.
Yeah, I agree. That was one of the nice things that for the macro terror, because there was so little that we knew of the macro terror as far as what the actual episodes looked like, or what it was like to see it on screen, which kind of gave the studios a little bit more freedom to do what they wanted and to create more of an adventure type story.
Oh,
So,
and they also played around with shadows so much
mhm.
to actually see that. And again, that adds so much to the story instead of this the still pictures we are used to from the Saturday morning cartoons. They did a lot more than that.
Mhm.
Just added so much
Um,
to the story.
One of the things I thought that was beneficial when they started doing a lot of the stories that they first started doing were Patrick Troughton stories,
Mhm.
mainly because his era is the one that got affected most by the episodes being wiped and by the films being destroyed. So we don't have much of these. But when they started doing them, they hired Martin Garrity, who is one of the comic strip artists for Doctor Who magazine, who has been doing Doctor Who for quite some time, to come up with character designs for Patrick Troughton and for Jamie and for Zoe, and it was they were able to hire him on to do the character designs for the TARDIS crew, as well as the people that they were doing for the first animation. But then they were also able to use those all the stuff they did for that story and carry it over to the next one to as a cost cutting measure for the animation, because they could use these cells over again, and a lot of the computer work that they did to animate it, they could carry those arms and those facial expressions and stuff over and just reuse them. So it was able to save them money as they went from or story to story to story.
It also depends on the studio too, because sometimes they would continue on, and other times it's like they just did their own thing.
Yeah. Um, I know one of the ones I was really excited about seeing that they released was The Power of the Daleks,
Yes.
just
And they had
because.
two versions of it too.
Mhm. um,
The earlier one had the black and white and color versions. Uh, and the anniversary issue, I think it was, which anniversary was it for? 50th anniversary, which I
I
did
believe it was.
because I was basically cost cutting. I figure I already got it once. I'm not going to get it again.
uh,
Um, but there were errors in this version that they corrected in the re-release. But I think the re-release only had it in black and white. I don't read a review
I
somewhere.
don't have my DVDs in front of me, so I can't really tell you on
I'm
that one.
sorry
But
about that.
I know for me it was really exciting just because there's not much outside of the audio recordings of the Power of the Daleks to know what the story was like at all.
Mhm.
So for me being able to see what the story actually was, for me was really exciting just to see what that story was about and to see how Patrick Troughton, albeit an animated Patrick Troughton, was coming into the role of the Doctor for the very first time.
And that whole scene about them basically discovering him and trying to realize this is the same man who was here before.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole hallucination where he basically looks in the mirror and sees Hartnell
Yep.
before it actually goes back to him.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right. Seeing all of us longtime Doctor Who fans, we've seen numerous regeneration scenes and numerous first stories where we get to see how the Doctor comes into his own and figures out who he is, as well as the companions reacting to this new body and new persona of this person that they know, and being able to see Ben and Polly's reaction to the change of the Doctor and not really knowing what to think and thinking that he's an imposter.
Yes, because the ring fell off. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All those little details so you can't really think of while you're listening to just the audio or looking at the telesnaps. It's like it added so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they actually captured a lot of his sly movements, is basically where he's thinking that something's wrong. And I think this is also the scene with the recorder too,
Yep.
where in one version they kept the recorder scene in, and in the updated version they took the scene with the recorder out. It's like, why? That's the whole thing about that Doctor.
Yeah, that gives me another question I wanted to ask of you. Just kind of in general, as they've been making more and more of these animations, I know a lot of the directors of the animated stories have been taking the original audio recordings, the soundtracks of the stories, and kind of taking away bits and pieces here and there. A lot, and because there's scenes that or spots where there's just visual stuff going on and not a lot of audio stuff going on, or it might just be somebody casually standing around or casually walking through, or just a quiet scene. And I know a lot of directors have kind of, well, this part of the story or this 2 minutes isn't going to really work animated wise because there's nothing going on and we don't want to just have a static shot of a character or two characters standing there while you hear something going on off camera. Some of the Doctor Who traditionalists who love things being as accurate as they possibly can kind of took offense to that and said, well, I want the story to be presented to me like it was originally, even though I think a lot of them realize that what you see as an animated episode isn't going to be totally 100% accurate to what you saw on the stream, because there's no way of doing that when you don't have the original visuals to go by.
And
So
also
did
there's
you?
padding.
Yeah. So what did you think about that? Were you one of the more traditionalists that kind of took offense to that, or you're like kind of they can, as long
I
as I
go
get a
back
story,
and
they can do whatever they want?
Yeah, I go back and forth. I was also on the panel about the pop music in Doctor Who, and Eve Over the Daleks in the telesnaps, you still have Paperback Writer by the Beatles playing in the coffee bar.
Mm-hmm.
And the DVD, nope, it's cut because of copyright reasons. And they
Yeah.
also shortened the episode. Mark Ayres did his wonderful little kind of jazzy thing at that point, but they also shortened that whole scene, not just to take out the music, but because there wasn't that much going on back and forth. So
Mm-hmm.
it made it flow a little bit better. So yeah, I mean, the one thing is like I would have loved to have actually had the copyright music back in, but we saw it. Well, that's a different episode where we actually saw it on the VHS tape, but we didn't. It's cut from the DVD. But this one, because it only came out on DVD, people don't know what they're missing. On
Yeah.
the telesnaps, hey, you guys were if you're actually getting telesnaps back in the day, it's in there. But let's see, what else did they put in here? They had a couple of other cuts, and I don't remember what it was, but there were so many uh scenes that were actually obviously padding, so they actually get the full time, and it was probably the telesnaps is really slow, but I think because they trimmed a number of it, I thought it worked a little bit better with this.
Mhm.
How about you?
I'm kind of like you. I kind of waver back and forth on that fence. I if it's possible to be a purist on something, I would prefer they go that way. However, with the animations, I understand where they're coming from, and listening to them as audios, whether it was watching them with the telesnaps or even listening to the BBC radio CD releases that they did. I know there was a lot of stories where there would be linking narration where you'd have whether it be Fraser Hines or somebody having to describe what is going on in a scene for anywhere from 20 seconds to 2 minutes,
Mhm.
because what was going on was something you couldn't hear because it was just somebody moving or walking or sneaking up on something else, or a Dalek running, coming down a corridor.
Or them running after a truck
Yeah,
for the evil
exactly.
Daleks. Like,
So
how
so
long can you have them running after the truck? Really, you got the idea.
Yeah, so for me, with the animations, I feel like you need to keep the audience engaged, and if you stick to the original script or original soundtrack, you're you're going to have a lot of spots where you're going to have me as a watcher or viewer sitting there going, can this move along a little bit faster? So the editing that they did, I think, was well done, and definitely served its purpose and made the stories go along at a faster pace to keep the story flowing.
Mhm. Yeah.
Speaking
And that
of Evil
whole
of the Daleks, that was another one of the ones that I was really looking forward to, because I remember way back many ages ago buying that on audio cassette to listen to, and how much I really enjoyed that story. I just thought it was a really good Patrick Troughton story, and was really looking forward to that animated one coming out, just to see how well they did it. I was really impressed with that one. I thought the animation really fit the feel of the story, um, and it to me it outlived or exceeded my expectations for what I was expecting on that story.
because I was looking forward to see how they actually handled the Daleks playing with the Doctor
Hmm.
and the idea of them. They're giving him a ride. Oh, this is cute. And
Yeah,
it's just,
and
yeah.
uh, I the if I remember right, Evil of the Daleks and Power of the Daleks. These were ones that when they were being made, BBC America were helping fund
Yeah.
the making of these, on the condition that they were able to uh, air them over here in the U.S. before they got released on DVD.
Mhm.
And I think that's part of the reason why we got uh, these episode or these stories released as black and white animations as well as color animations.
Mhm.
Um, the what did you think about having them? Considering Patrick Troughton is a black and white era, having those stories released in color.
Well, I mean, the BBC America, if I recall correctly, aired the black and white first, and then the later showing was the color version.
Okay.
And purist here, yes, I like the black and white because it was filmed, shadows were important. Um, just because of the way black and white actually has been filmed. There's a
Hmm.
whole different tradition of filming that you is kind of jumped over in color. Um, so I like the fact that you actually have two versions so that you can, okay, I feel like we're watching in color because the modern audience just, oh my gosh, black and white, or like the rest of us is like, yeah, that's the way it was originally filmed. And there was a whole reason for that. But
Hmm.
unfortunately, some of the ones that they did the color first and then they turned it to black and white. It's like I'm not quite sure which order. I'm blanking on which one that was. I think it's probably explained in one of the reviews I read.
Oh, yeah.
Coming up in Doctor Who magazine.
Yeah, I know. Talking to some of the people that worked on the animations, when it came to creating them, they they created them all in color to begin with. Like they
Mhm.
hired, I know like Adrian Salmon, who has done some artwork for Doctor Who magazine on the comic strip, and also did a lot of coloring of comic strips. Um, he was hired to do the coloring, the color guide for a lot of the character design and the storyboards and the backgrounds and stuff. Excuse me. And they all these animations they originally did them in color because it was, but they also wanted to provide a black and white version for, since it was the Patrick Troughton era or the William Hartnell era when it was released in black and white, and it's a lot easier for them to do the color version because they knew that today's modern audience wants something in color, and there's not going to be as many of them to watch it in black and white. But as far as switching it to a black and white, it wasn't that difficult using computers to just switch everything over to gray tones and kind of just release it that way. So it, and I'm like you, Kathy. Since it's Patrick Troughton, all those episodes that do survive are all in black and white. I want to see it in black and white as well. For me, Patrick Troughton is, almost most of the time it's a monster of the week type episode, and for me, that kind of hankers back to the Universal movie monsters. And so a lot of the Patrick Troughton stories, like the Abominable Snowmen and the Macra Terror and things like that, have that monster feel, and so I want that black and white because that's what I grew up watching with Frankenstein and Dracula and Wolfman, and to me, it has that same kind of feel.
Yeah, because it's at night. It's in a cave. It's in a subway tunnel. It's like it's dark. You're not
Mm-hmm.
going to see much color. Well, you expect that. Now we're starting to get to the ones where they added stuff. So,
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
faceless ones. I'm probably doing them out of order. Faceless one came first and then Fury from the Deep.
We've been jumping around anyway, so you go
Oh,
right
yeah.
ahead.
Faceless ones had so many Easter eggs. They're just wonderful to look at. So, I mean, they're leaving the police station. You suddenly see on the wall pictures of Delgado Master and Sasha Dewan Master and the meddling monk. You've got a little shot of Bessie in the parking lot. You've got mentions of Magpie from Idiot's Lantern, but you're getting Magpie Electronics hidden here and there. And let's see, some of the other ones. There was something about Waterfield from Evil.
Yeah.
There's also a newspaper that has the headline about Wotan being defeated. So all those little Easter eggs that you have to go back and look at the slow stills and go, oh yeah, that's mentioning another show. Okay. I mean, yes, they redid the fact that the chameleons, and it's probably because you get more of a close-up, that the chameleons were not that bubbly faced blank face. They actually did something else to show that they are a different alien race. 6 of one, half dozen the other. It's like, okay, finally, they get their own idea of what they look like. How about with you?
No, as far as like the Easter eggs go and sneaking that stuff in, it's nice of them to give little treats to those of us longtime Doctor Who fans, and even with like Magpie Electronics for something to tie it in with the new series of Doctor Who or newer series of Doctor Who. I thought was really neat, it's things that definitely were not in the original transmission of these stories, but at the same time, it's a nice nod to those of us who have been around for forever and a day that get these references. So it's neat to sneak those in.
Oh, yes, and Magpie was also mentioned in Evil of the Daleks. There's this little side. So I think it was just one device that Troughton was holding. Whereas in Faceless ones, they got really carried away. And there was also supposed to be a weeping angel in Evil, which I have to go back and slow down and look for it again.
Oh, yeah.
Love all these little Easter eggs.
Uh-huh.
And then Fury from the Deep, we've also got the Delgado picture,
Hmm.
and the fact that we have a lot more crew members with different ethnic backgrounds instead of just being all Caucasian white.
Hmm.
That added a lot more to the story too. It's like, okay, the voice, and especially if they were background characters with no voice credits, why not?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It,
And
it was
actually
kind of,
makes it show more international in scope.
yeah, exactly. I know. I think when I was talking to Gary Russell about one of the animated ones that he directed, he had mentioned the fact that it was kind of a chance for them to kind of right a wrong,
Mhm.
from back in the '60s of having them not be cast such a diverse group of actors back then,
Yeah,
but now to along with what's going on in society and stuff in present day to kind of be able to fix that, or at least give a show of respect to inclusion of people and races and that kind of stuff in there. So I thought, yeah, that kudos, good job on them.
yeah. Because I was also in the Abominable Snowman. So he did a presentation at Gallifrey, where he actually shows some of the slides and changes and everything else. It's also in the
Hmm.
review in the Doctor Who magazine about the fact that they've got different ethnicities for, okay, sure, that shows a little bit more. The fact that you
Yep.
actually got different faces.
Hmm.
And there are some people who are complaining that, oh my gosh, their images are so much older than the actual actors were. It's like, yeah, but you're changing things. Why do they all have to be a particular age? Why do they all have to be a particular race? And well, I mean, for the fact that it's supposed to be set in Tibet. Yeah, we do not
Hmm.
need Caucasians there all filling
Yeah.
up the entire thing.
Yeah.
Uh,
Exactly.
and there were a few other things that they did in Abominable Snowman, but again, I don't have them. I finally gave up on waiting for the American release, so I finally ordered it from the UK, which should be coming soon. Thank goodness they had a sale a couple months ago about on region free DVDs because same thing too with the I don't stream, so I have to wait for the DVD to come with the specials.
Oh, I see.
Well, that's going to be coming soon too, so I can watch that. But
Yeah.
because both Abominable Snowman is going to take, you were saying, what's the release date for the US for Abominable
I
Snowman?
believe Abominable Snowman is supposed to be coming out on January 9th, or at least that's what the copy I have on order from Amazon that's been on pre-order forever and a day says. So
I still couldn't
uh,
find it. So, like, I'm glad you were able
it,
to find it.
it it should be right around the corner. Actually, speaking of upcoming releases, I guess we should talk about kind of the more current release and
Please.
the next one that'll be coming up.
Yeah, the next one is Underwater Menace. I just got the new issue of Doctor Who magazine with a certain
Mhm.
person on the cover. Yay. But they have a review of the Underwater Menace. And one of the things that again they've changed because I gather there is supposed to be a sea creature in one of the labs called Neptune, and everybody was getting all excited because they thought it was going to be an octopus, and it's just a fish. So for the DVD, they actually turned it into an octopus.
Mhm.
Okay, right in the wrong. Makes more sense to have an octopus rather than a fish. Come on.
Mhm.
And the other images too is like, okay, a lot of us old time fans remember the pictures of what the fish people looked like. Well, it looks like they're going to be more looking like fish people. Good. I mean, yes, sequins are nice, but come on. I mean, this is technology that they couldn't do as far as special effects back in the day. So
Yeah.
actually having real fish people looking, this looks ought to be good.
Yeah, I think they've been doing a really good job of the releases. I know they've been uh, having kind of budgetary constraints because it costs an awful lot to do animation. Much like as far as Doctor Who magazine goes, that you show there, the comic strip is the most expensive part of each issue of Doctor Who magazine to do because you have to pay a writer, you have to pay an artist, you have to pay a colorist,
Mhm.
you to do all that work. Um, they just released some images for the upcoming Celestial Toymaker animation that they're going to come out with, and this animated is a bit different than the other animations in that they're doing more computer based animation, more like CGI looking characters,
Okay.
and the images that have been released. Most fans are not very happy with. A lot of fans have been kind of picking it apart because the portrayal of the first Doctor, he looks kind of scary just because he looks almost like it's partially animated, but they haven't like rounded things off, or it's, to me it looks almost like these are the kind of the early stages of their animation. They haven't really got it completed yet.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know if you've seen the pictures or not.
I
There's
saw a
been kind
couple
of,
and they're just awful looking.
yeah, it looks rather scary, and there's been a pretty big fan outcry as to what to expect for this release.
Okay.
I was going to ask you, as you look at the animations, not just of, I guess, the missing episodes like we've been talking about, but even if you want to go back as far as like the Infinite Quest, the David Tennant stuff,
Mhm.
kind of back when they started doing the animations, they've had quite a few different studios do
Yeah.
Doctor Who animations, even up to now with this new studio doing this kind of CGI computer based animation.
Mhm.
Um, do you feel like fans would have been better suited, or the BBC would have been better suited to stick with one animation studio or one animation style for all these stories to kind of give a cohesiveness to the animated stories?
It kind of depends on who they chose because I mean, with Web of Fear, I gather they tried to do 3D and it looked awful. Oh my
Hmm.
gosh. Those people don't bend that way. No. So if they had stuck with that, they would have sunk that whole animation right there. Um, I think because we have a variety of styles, um, people are more willing to take a chance. There are going to be some studios like that are just eye bags. Yes, I will bring that up again. Or and there are other ones where it's like they're moving like Lego people. It's like that. No, try and get more little
Yeah.
fluid in there. So
Uh-huh.
it kind of helps, I think, that they've done different studios, so they aren't locked into something that's really awful. On the other hand, because some of us really like the artwork, and I would choose a cartoon, Saturday morning cartoon or something just based on the artwork.
Hmm.
Um, so I think I still think it's good that they actually did try different studios. Again, get different pricing and you get different artwork, but it's still, we've got a variety of styles.
Yeah.
And if they the trouble is if they'd locked in the wrong one, we wouldn't have what we've got now.
Yeah, that is true. I as far as animation goes, I'm more of a traditional animation fan. I prefer like the regular, animation cells printed on plastic and
The
doing the
classic.
flippy and changing things around. I know nowadays it's all done on computer, but it's still kind of basically that same style. Which to me, like the power of the Daleks and the evil of the Daleks, that animation style I thought worked really well to tell a Doctor Who story with. It gave you, I thought, decent visuals for the characters and stuff. You had kind of the static type backgrounds that you could move the characters in front of and still tell a, a, a Doctor Who story that to me looked like a traditional Doctor Who story would look if it was live action. Um, and still have some action scenes here and there as need be, and they fit in nicely. I guess my problem is that there's some animations, especially the ones that have been more recent, where they just to me look off. It looks like the they're trying to either hire a studio that uh, either has a different feel that I'm just not getting, or it's a studio that gave them the lowballed the budget on it and said, "Here's how cheaply we can do this for you."
Mhm.
Um, which I don't think it does the BBC any favors by doing that, because all you're doing is putting out an inferior product that you're going to be alienating fans more by putting out something that we're not going to want to watch.
Yeah.
You're almost killing the market by doing that.
And of course, they're also kind of killing the market by the fact that now the BBC America is not in part of it. That's why we had to wait so long for Abominable Snowman, because when it was released, they had just shown The Last of Jodie. So they were basically washing their hands of Doctor Who and letting Disney Plus take it over. But Disney Plus did not have the rights to distribute it. So it was just basically out in limbo, and it's only on UK. So, I mean, the fact they're finally getting an American version, excellent. We'll see how long it takes them for the Underwater Menace.
Yeah, well, not only that, we do have some good news on the animation front in that they have said that they do. It sounds like they got another outside source to help pay for the budget of doing these animations, and they have said that their plan is to animate the rest of the missing stories, so that we will actually have all the Doctor Who stuff complete. I think the main rationale behind that is, like, if you start going through and looking at what animated stories have been done so far, you'll see that, like, season 5 of Patrick Troughton, the 5th season, they pretty much have all those stories animated right now. So if they're releasing the classic Doctor Who season by season, they could do a Patrick Troughton box set finally, where the majority of the stories are going to be animated, but at least it'll fill that gap, and they know that they will have a market for people collecting all the series sets of classic Doctor Who, and they will have a guaranteed sale there, so they can release the animations singly by themselves, but then they can also package them together as a box set and put those out.
Yeah, because I mean, there's so many, and there's the ones they're going to have to shorten because Marco Polo really went on too long. Highlanders would be nice to see. Savages. And definitely Celestial Toymaker, now that we've got that interest back in that particular character.
Yep.
Massacre, St. Bartholomew's Eve, Dalek's Master Plan, and Mythmakers. I'd love to see that too. I don't know. They're probably have to shorten a bunch of stuff on the Space Pirates, so because I understand some episodes were just a lot of waiting in space.
One of the things I'm looking forward to is, with them saying that they're going to do all these animated stories of the missing episodes, I think that will give a lot of fans who either have not seen some of these missing stories or have just watched the telesnaps or listened to the soundtracks. Like for the Space Pirates and the Smugglers are the two that I think of, because most fans think of those as, oh, those stories aren't really all that great. Whether they have listened to the sound, the soundtracks, and just kind of, since they don't have visuals to go with it, they just kind of dismiss it as, oh, this is a boring story. But I think if we have animated versions of these to come out, I think a lot of these missing stories, people will come to appreciate them for being, better than what they expect.
I mean, when they finally got their hands on the full Enemy of the World, that story had always been ranked really low, but when they actually saw it and saw what Troughton could do and saw what Jamie, I was like, yes, this was that really went up. Oh, and at the end of Macra of Terror, they actually had one episode of Wheel in Space. Do you know if the animator for the Wheel, because they were not the same animators that did Macra of Terror. It was a different animation crew that did the one episode in space.
Yeah, I think. I'm not sure. I think it was a different studio, and I think the Wheel in Space is one is the story that is only available on BritBox. They animated, and it was
so it's already been animated. Okay.
It's animated, but it's not available on DVD. You can watch it on BritBox.
Okay, then we have to get that one on DVD, guys. Come on.
It was done specifically for BritBox, and I'm sure it was something that is under a contract of, they have exclusive rights for, 2 years, 3 years, whatever, as a way to try to entice people, Doctor Who fans, to subscribe to BritBox so they can watch it. So eventually, I'm sure it will come out. It's all done. They just have to put it onto a DVD and put it out there for sale.
I mean, Zoe, that's Zoe's episode. I want to be able to see that.
Yep, exactly. Um,
And those of
uh,
us who basically like to hang on to the physical medium, hello.
well, I'm that way too. That's I've gotten rid of a lot of my stuff over the years, but I still have my Doctor Who DVDs, or at least I'm buying the seasons. I've been buying the animations as they come out, just to have them. Those are ones that's like as I get older and have more free time. In theory, as I get older, that I'll be able to sit down and just watch over and over again.
Yeah, that's what I thought my VHS tapes. Oh well, no.
um, what I have a couple other questions that I was just going to throw out there, and um, let's take a look at Shada for real quick, just because
It's missing
Shada is
episode.
it's a missing episode, a missing story, but it's been released in so many versions.
Yep.
I wanted to ask you, like, first, when they did the Paul McGann and Lala Ward version, that was on the BBC website. Did you watch that? What did you think of that?
Oh yeah. I like the way the different interpretation, especially with President Romana. Yes. Uh, so yeah, I like that version. I had the VHS tapes back in the day.
Hmm.
Still have them. Uh, and that wasn't just on BBC. That was Big Finish that did that with the Eighth
Yeah,
Doctor. Yeah.
yep, they did. Well, they did the animated version on the website, but also the soundtrack of it was released by Big Finish as an
Okay.
audio. Um, but then then they also came out with the animated version with Tom Baker
Hmm.
in it, and I was wondering what you thought about that animated release.
Uh, there was something about the artwork that just kind of, oh yeah, gosh, yes. Kronos had all the eye bags again too. Um, why do they keep putting them really dark eye bags? I don't know why. Um,
It makes the eyes stand out and become more pronounced.
they just look tired all the time. It's like, why are they? That poor man is just throwing away.
Everybody needs more sleep in this animation.
Yeah. Uh, I think if I remember correctly, that was really, again, it was more the jerky movements rather than really smoothly.
Hmm.
Uh, but there was also, I remember a scene fading where they actually live action, they looked up at the sky and then they looked down again and it was animated version. They did a really good job of syncing the two of them.
Hmm.
It kind of
Yep.
probably
Yep.
depended on the episode, on the part.
Yeah, I thought it was good to just to kind of they did that version. I thought worked real well for me just because it flowed along really nicely compared to the version that they had for a while where it was Tom Baker kind of telling the story, and then they
Narrating
would
it.
throw in
Yeah.
the scenes that they actually had shot, and it kind of went back and forth. And to me, that every time I would get into the episode where they actually had some studio footage that they had shot, as soon as Tom Baker would show up to put in the linking narration, it took me right out of the story.
Yeah.
But at least with the animated one, I was able to get in and follow along through the whole thing that way.
Yeah, the story made more sense too, instead of just like, here, stop, Tom is going to be talking again. It's like, oh,
Yeah. One last question because we're nearing about our 50-minute mark.
okay.
Um, since you and I have watched all these animations, for those people that have been taking an interest in this panel and have heard about the Doctor Who animated stories, but maybe haven't checked any out, what would you say are maybe like your top three animated stories that they've come out with that you would recommend for a newbie to watch and check out?
Uh, can't comment on Abominable Snowman and Underwater Menace because I don't have them yet.
Hmm.
Like I've been seeing all the screenplays. Macro Terror, definitely, because instead of
Hmm.
having this, oh, just headlights, you actually see a scary crab. Um, although you keep wondering what's going on with Ben. Let's see. I liked Evil of the Daleks and Power of the Daleks.
Hmm.
So those are the top three. Again,
Okay.
until I see Abominable Snowman, I'll probably move that right in there, though.
Mm-hmm.
How about you?
Um, from the Makra Terror, I really enjoyed. I am with you. I liked seeing their animated version of the Makra, and not only that, just recently I went back and rewatched the episode Gridlock with David
Yes.
Tennant, and the seeing the Makra down at the bottom of the new Earth reminded me of the animation. Those two stories kind of work well together, I think.
Yeah.
Seeing the original Makra and then seeing where they are in the far future. So that story plus is just a good solid story in my opinion. I would say Evil of the Daleks is one that I would recommend, especially if you're a Dalek fan. To me, as far as like a Terry Nation Dalek story, I always thought Evil of the Daleks was one of the better ones. If I remember right, he wrote that one. I could be totally wrong, but anyway, as far as it being a Dalek story, I thought it was one of the better written ones. Whoever wrote it. But then the third one that I would throw in, just because I like William Hartnell as the Doctor. As being a Doctor Who fan, I started watching Doctor Who back in 1985, and it was about 1986 where Iowa Public Television started showing Doctor Who right from the beginning, from An Earthly Child on. And back then, I didn't think all that much of William Hartnell, but as I've watched his stories over and over again, I've gotten a new appreciation for him. And as far as the animations have gone, I was really impressed with Galaxy 4. This was a story that I had the CD version of, and I listened to it, and I thought it sounded like a pretty decent story then. But when it came out with the animated version, I was really impressed by it. I thought the Chumblies, although they visually look like kind of derpy little Dalek wannabes, I thought they actually came to life and became more entertaining and more interesting in the animation. But I also think that the story itself was a very strong story. And so that's one I would recommend. Plus, you get to see it's one of the few stories right now that has William Hartnell in an animated story. So that is one I would recommend. So, for those of you who are out there, actually, as far as pretty much any of the animated stories, I don't think any of them are really bad. Just like Doctor Who in general, I don't think there's such a thing as like a bad Doctor Who story or a bad Doctor Who episode. Just that there's some that are better than others. As far as the animations go, there's a bunch of them out there. If you're new to Doctor Who animated stories, go on Amazon and you can do a search. In fact, they're back quite a while back, several years ago. Walmart had an exclusive. It was a box set called Doctor Who: The Animated Collection, and it had I think it had the Power of the Daleks. It had Shadas in it. It had like 5 or 6 stories, and back then it was $20 for all these DVDs. And I think you can get it on Amazon right now, or I bet if you looked on eBay, you could get it really cheap for that $20 mark. And that would be a really good intro to try out the animated story.
Yeah.
So there's kind of my shameless plug if you want to get something cheap, or even go on eBay and look for just Doctor Who animated, and you can probably pick up a DVD for a few bucks and check it out for yourself. So,
and if you're more interested in the modern day and you want more of the colorized versions, or some there are colorized. So.
Yep, exactly. So, Kathy, I want to thank you for joining me for this panel.
Thank you.
You're going to be around Console Room for the weekend. You're going to have your books to plug and sell.
Yes, I'll be an
artist. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
On the interwebs, I'm at KathrynSullivan.com. I'm on Facebook, but you can find me off the website. It goes to links everywhere else. How about you?
Perfect. Well, I'm Jeremy Bement. Once again, I host a podcast called Doctor Who Panel to Panel. You can download it wherever you get podcasts. I'm on iTunes and Spotify, here, there, everywhere. You can find my website, which is drwhocomics.com, where I have whatever information you want to know about Doctor Who comics. And thank you all for joining us. This has been the Animated Missing Episodes panel.